They tried to arrest me for fishing on my own dock. I know how insane that sounds, but picture this: three guys in black uniforms storming down like they owned the place, one flashing a cheap plastic badge while the HOA chairwoman stood on the shore smirking like she'd just won something. My hands were shaking somewhere between rage and disbelief, and in that moment I honestly wondered, was I losing my mind or had my neighborhood just turned into some bad reality show? I've been fishing off that dock since I was 8 years old. My father built it back in the 80s, and it's always been my way to clear my head after brutal work days. That night, the lake was calm, mirror smooth, catching every shade of orange in the sky. It was supposed to be peace, not a battleground. Then I heard footsteps, heavy boots, 3 sets coming down my dock like they owned it. The tallest one announced himself as head of lake security, a title that sounded fake before I even saw the badge. He demanded I stop fishing, hand over my rod for inspection. Behind him, 2 more men stood like backup muscle. And, on the shoreline, Lydia Hart, HOA chairwoman, self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, watching like she was directing the whole scene. I asked what the hell they were doing on private property. I pointed at the big sign, "Private Lake No Trespassing," nailed to the post. The tall guy held up that badge, some shiny blue plastic with Lake Patrol stamped on it, and tried to tell me HOA covenants overruled a county-recorded deed. I should have laughed, but then Mason, the shorter one with the bulldog build, stepped forward and put his hand on my fishing rod. I saw the bulge under his jacket. I don't know if it was a weapon, but he wanted me to think it was. That subtle little threat was enough to make my blood boil. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Gentlemen," I said before we go any further, "this is all going on camera." I showed them my deed laminated and posted right on the dock. The tall one faltered, but Lydia swooped in with her usual condescending tone. "Grant, we've talked about this. Your fishing disrupts harmony, lowers property values, and the residents don't want the noise or the mess." Noise mess. I practice catch and release. I don't leave trash. It was absurd. But when Mason leaned in again, muttering about the easy way or the hard way, my chest tightened. For the first time in my own backyard, I felt like prey. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's toy badge, Mason's smirk, Lydia's smug face. And I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being too stubborn. Maybe HOA really did have some kind of obscure authority. I mean, what if I'd been in the wrong this whole time and just didn't know it? That thought almost broke me, almost made me want to give up, stay inside, and let them have their way. But something in me snapped back. My father had guarded that lake for decades, and I wasn't about to let a pack of con artists steal it out from under me. Around 2 a.m., I grabbed my drone, my camera, and set out to see what they were hiding. I followed the sound of machinery near the community landscaping area, crouched behind the trees, and what I found made my stomach turn. A massive intake pipe 8 inches across jammed into the spawning grounds of my lake. Water was being sucked out nonstop, minnows and fish eggs torn straight into the system. Hidden chemical drums sat under a tarp marked with hazard warnings. This wasn't community maintenance, this was destruction. And it was brand new concrete still curing bushes freshly planted to cover it up. I documented everything: photos, videos, serial numbers. I even used biological marking dye on fish harmless but traceable so I could prove where the stolen water and life were going. By dawn, I had a case file growing in my hands. And I had one name in my mind: Lydia. At the next HOA meeting, Lydia stood at her podium clicking through slides about community harmony. She even had a giant red arrow pointing at my dock, calling me a threat to property values. I stood up, held up my deed, and passed out a chart I'd made: HOA guidelines versus actual law. The room started buzzing. Carol, a neighbor, raised her hand. "Lydia, why are HOA funds paying Secure Guard invoices 6 months after that company was dissolved?" That question hit like a bomb. Derek and Mason walked in at that exact moment, dressed in their fake uniforms, trying to look official. Phones whipped out, recording every second. That should have been enough, but Derek and Mason weren't done. They switched tactics. Whisper campaigns. They spread rumors that I was unstable, dangerous, not safe around children. At the kids' fishing event, I hosted something I'd done for years. They cornered parents and warned them about me. I watched families pull their kids' close eyes full of suspicion. And, for a moment, I cracked. Maybe they were right. Maybe my obsession with proving the truth did make me look unhinged. The weight of that doubt nearly crushed me. But then Emma, a little girl, caught her first fish, and I taught her how to release it safely. Her father, an environmental consultant, listened to me explain the ecosystem, and his whole face shifted from suspicion to respect. Parents started recording streaming live. Derek tried to interrupt sneering about unsafe wildlife, but I pulled out my official wildlife credentials. "Actually, this is authorized work with state protocols," I said. Bob the consultant read them, turned to the crowd, and said, "This is real science." Derek and Mason's smear campaign collapsed on camera, their accusations exposed as lies. That was the turning point. One by one, neighbors started sharing their own HOA horror stories, fake fines, bogus violations. Intimidation tactics. Carol's mailbox citation. The Williams family's parking tickets in their own driveway. Margaret's old fence being non-compliant after 15 years. It all added up, and when we totaled just our group's fake fines, over $4,000. Lydia wasn't running a neighborhood, she was running a racket. We formed a coalition. We met in living rooms, spread letters across tables like evidence in a trial. Bob analyzed the environmental damage, Carol tracked the financial fraud, I provided the footage. Piece by piece, the scam unraveled. And when Paige Walker State Wildlife Enforcement Officer confirmed the water samples showed banned chemicals in dangerous concentrations, we knew we had them cornered. This wasn't just HOA bullying. This was organized crime. The showdown came at the Lakeside Pavilion. Lydia arrived in her crisp suit portfolio in hand, Derek and Mason flanking her in those ridiculous uniforms. She laid out forged documents like she was in court claiming easements that never existed. I let her finish before sliding my evidence across the table, proof of dissolved companies' fraudulent payments, chemical contamination, and GPS tracking data from my confiscated net. Paige stepped forward, badge glinting under the sun, and said calmly, "Mr. Hole impersonation of a law enforcement officer is a crime." Neighbors gathered around cameras, rolling coalition members carrying their own stacks of fake violation notices. Lydia's voice cracked as she tried to spin it back on me, calling me obsessive disruptive, but no one bought it. Paige laid it out flat. Fraud, environmental violations, conspiracy, impersonation. Then the cuffs came out. Derek and Mason were arrested, first hands behind their backs, no swagger left. Lydia tried to step away, muttering excuses, but Paige cut her off. "Lydia Hart, you are under arrest." Watching her face drop, watching that smug, untouchable look finally vanish was the moment everything shifted. The fight ended there on the pavilion with the lake in sight and the truth laid bare. No celebrations, no applause. Just silence, heavy and final, as the reality of their downfall sank in. And here's the lesson I walked away with: never mistake fake authority for real power, because sooner or later the truth will surface.